Hey everyone, this is John from EastCoastArmory.com, and I'm here today with a new product announcement video for the various 1/6 scale detail accessories that you see here on the table. These components here are for a multitude of different vehicles, from the Jeep to HMGs to also the brand new ArmorTech M26 Pershing and a few other vehicles in between. So as you can see, there's going to be a lot of info to go over, as well as all the interesting details and features that I found on all these various new components. All of the components that you see in this video are currently listed on the various EastCoastArmory.com catalog pages, and the direct links can be found in the video description listed below. So with that out of the way, just sit back and enjoy. A set that I've been wanting to redesign now for a number of years. That set is the US AFV tool set. These are the Pioneer tools that you generally see on the sides of various American tanks, such as the Sherman, Pershing, so on and so forth. This set here was, or I should say the original set, was tooled up in the late 2000s, early 2010s timeframe, and that was in production for the longest period of time. In fact, here I have one of the original wrenches from that set, and this one was just clunking around the shop. Well, the molds for these components here are definitely worn out, and so I've been wanting to replace them with a new generation set, and that's what we have here. The set is basically bridging the gap between the two, where I'm recycling some of the components that were totally fine, and the other components are going to be new production. What I mean by that is, well, the set originally had the tool components, or I should say the tool heads, made in cast resin, while the actual handles themselves were made out of wood. The wood components, there's nothing going to be changing about that, and that is staying exactly the same. The only thing that was revised were the actual tools themselves. So here you can see the set. It's all encompassing on this one little fret that we have here. It's actually the wrench, but it acts as a runner nonetheless. So here you can see the large fastener wrench. On a Sherman tank, this would be used to remove the row wheels from the bogie housings, as well as also adjusting the track tension, if I'm not mistaken. The wrench itself was patterned off of a real Sherman tank wrench that I was able to have some very good references on. So the geometry and the shape of the tool are all as per spec. The other thing I do want to mention is the forge line that's right over here in the center portion of the tool head. This is a nice little bit of detailing that is easily overlooked, but it is present on the ECA component. The other components are consisting of the pickaxe, or I should say the pickaxe head. Has the center spine right over here. Everything is to the appropriate shape. On this side here we have the sledgehammer. Seen one, you basically seen them all. And here we have the axe head. The axe head is hollow, unlike the original cast ones, which were solid. And everything is basically ready to be snipped off and then secured in place. For the tool handles themselves, here we have the axe handle, which again is made out of real wood, and it's sanded down, and this is exactly how you get them. And this has been, again, a staple on the ECA catalog now for over 10 years. We have a length of round dowel, which is used for the sledge, as you can see. And we also have the pickaxe handle right over here. Nothing much more to be said about that. And here's another component that has been on my elusive to-do list now for at least 15 years. And finally, I was able to get to it. It's better late than never, and if anything, it's better that I got to it now than earlier. What we have here is the American Jeep passenger side MG Pedestal Base. The set here is designed to utilize any of the ECA cradle mounts that are posted on the catalog, specifically the 3D printed ones. The set is all-encompassing, which includes the pedestal base itself, a travel lock, the travel lock fasteners, and also the bottom mounting fasteners. Another little bit of detail included is the stiffener fastener, which is found right over here. At the moment on this unit, you'll see that there are only two fasteners that are present for the securing of this base plate to the actual Jeep itself, but this is subject to change, and on the production units this will be revised, and you will have a full set of 4, and maybe 1 or 2 as extras. Starting with the pedestal socket itself, this is something I had some very good reference photographs on, so I was able to transition all of the little details and the geometry and scale it down to the 1/6 scale counterpart that you see presently. In addition to all of the shape and details that are present, you will see that the unit is integrally printed, hollow, and ready for mounting. This means no drilling is required, and like I stated before, you can utilize any of the ECA printed cradle mounts and just drop it in place without any sort of modifications need to be made to the cradle mount or to the pedestal base itself. On the side portion over here, you can see the little vise type lock lever, or I should say locking handle. All the details are integrally printed on and no assembly needs to be required, which is a departure from the older design sets that, had this as a separate component. Another thing I do want to point out is if you look carefully, you see a small little cutout found in that section right over there, and this is as per the real units that I was researching. This is there to have clearance so that when you're tightening and loosening this knob over here, the handle doesn't strike the side portion of the socket. The socket is, by the way, another CAD file that I went ahead and recycled on many brand new pedestal bases that are found on the ECA channel, and if you're curious to know what the full lineup is, I would recommend going to the link in the video description below, where you can get to see all of the new sets that are posted at this time. This is something that is going to grow as time goes on, as there are lots of variations of these pedestal bases that are found on American vehicles, both past and present. Back to this unit over here, this is one of the shorter pedestal bases and is a fraction of the height compared to some of the other options that are available, but again, this is because this one serves a special function, being for the side passenger portion of an American Jeep. On the lower portion over here, you can see this mounting point that is welded in place. The weld beads are present. This here is to affix on a travel lock that I'll mention momentarily, and on the reverse side over here you can see another bit of detailing that also has its welds integrally printed on. This here on the real unit is a support fastener, and it's used to actually help secure and mount this thing firmly to the side portion of the Jeep and give it a much sturdier mounting. This is definitely going to be in handy just to prevent the unit from bending around, either when the MG is being pivoted around or also when it's being fired. This piece here is actually two components. You have this part, which is integrally printed on, but then you also have this fastener section down here, and this is to give the detailing of the tensioner nut, which would be present on the real unit. You basically install the nut, mount this piece to your model, and then you could adjust the piece accordingly so it has the right look. It doesn't actually adjust the tension on the part, it's just there purely for detail purposes. On the bottom portion over here, you get to see the mounting fasteners that I referenced before. And on the bottom base plate, we do have weld beads that are integrally printed, although they're quite difficult to see in this condition, but rest assured they are there on the production units. Moving upward takes us to the travel lock. The travel lock on this section over here is different compared to the travel lock that is found on the other MG mounts that are found on the ECA catalog. This one here was taken directly off of a real example that I was doing some research on, and the reason is because this one here is specifically intended to be used with that one universal mount that can mount either a Browning 1919, an M2, or the BAR. Because that one does not have the actual cradle on, it's just a yoke type assembly, this unit here is intended to clip onto the rear trunnion sections of either the Browning 1919 or on the M2, and that's why it has this larger shape to it. Another bit of detailing that's supplied with the set, but you do not see on the table at this time, are the plastic rod which utilized for the lock pin, as well as a length of metal chain. What is present are the two fasteners that we have right here, and this is used to pin the unit in place, and once assembled, the unit is fully functional. If you are not utilizing the yoke type assembly, you can either omit the travel lock altogether, or just leave it in its retracted state. Another thing I do want to mention again is back to the socket section. Like I said before, this unit can fit any of the ECA cradle mounts, and to prove that, here I have one of my cradle mounts right here on hand. This here is the 3050 mount and was borrowed from another project that I'm finishing at this time, but regardless, here you can see how the unit just drops directly into place with absolutely zero modifications being made. Like I mentioned before, this is directly from the parts bag from the printer, and Absolutely zero modifications have been made whatsoever. Fresh out of the bag, and the ECA cradle mount just drops directly into place. And as you can see, it also holds it on pretty well. You can go ahead and secure this to your ROC Hobby Jeep, drive around with it, have a ball, and the unit should stay in its appropriate location without causing any problems. The next components to mention are these two sets that we have here on the table. These are going to be the subject matter of their own model showcase videos, but that's something that's going to be coming down the road when I have some more new cradle sets that are available, and more information on that is of course to come. However, these here are two conversion sets for the Dragon Browning M1919, as well as also the Dragon M2HB. In regards to the M2, this set will also work on the ZY Toys M2HB, and all of these sets here can be found on the ECA HMG catalog page that can be found in the video description. Starting with the set here on the bottom, this here is a conversion set to convert the Dragon unit from the Browning M2HB to the Browning AN M250. The AN M250 is a very distinctive MG where it has this very long ventilated shroud, much along the lines of the 1919. And this here is meant to replace the entire front end of the Browning M2. You keep the receiver, just omit the barrel as well as the cooling shroud section, and this unit here should just plug directly in place. The AN M250 was a very widely utilized MG for a large number of roles, primarily used on aircraft mounts such as like on bombers, or also you would see them mounted on vehicles like PT boats. The AN M250 was seen occasionally on ground mounts as well, and there is a picture or two of one of these being fitted onto a standard M23 cradle and mounted on top of a Sherman tank or two. So it was a very widely utilized system. The ECA set over here contains all of the appropriate details for this type of unit. We have here the collar section. And by the way, everything you see here is printed in HD resin material, so it has a very high level of detail fidelity on the surface. So back to what I was saying before, here you can see the mounting collar has all the appropriate geometry that was lifted off of a real Browning M2HB example. You notice that on the barrel nut over there, you'll see the wrench slits integrally printed on. You can even see the little seam that surrounds or separates the locking collar from the mounting nut itself. Here we have the main portion, which is the ventilated shroud. It has the appropriate number of vents found on the barrel section, and in the correct locations no less. We also have the inner barrel detailing that is present as well. The barrel section is of course hollow through and through. On the front section over here we have the end cap, and note it does have the appropriate geometry for this component. And we also have the retention fastener detailing right there, in there. The sets are offered in two options. We have just a single barrel option, but since it was, widely utilized in twin pairs, I also have one where you have the two units like we have right here. This is sold for a little less than if you just order two individual ones separately, so you do have a little bit more value in that regard. The next thing to mention is this set that we have here. Now this is a pre-production sample set. The actual production units are going to be slightly different, but they will have the exact same components. And what this is a set, a conversion set specifically to convert the Browning M1919A4 into the US Navy Mark 21 Mod O. The Mark 21 was nothing more than a Navy designation for the Browning M1919, but that was converted from the standard original caliber, which was 30-06, to 7.62 NATO. This was done in the 1950s era, and these units saw service with the US Navy all the way up through the Vietnam War period, and I believe were eventually retired in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. Regardless, what we have here is a conversion set to convert the Dragon World War II counterpart to this later iteration. Like I just mentioned, this is a pre-production sample. The production units are going to consist of the exact same components. However, instead of being offered in a twin pack, they're going to be offered in a 4-pack. So you have more components. So with one set, you can actually convert 4 M1919s to this type of configuration. So what we see here are a number of components, and if anyone has seen the earlier video that I posted a little while ago of the other Browning sets that were similar to this, it's basically in the exact same format. So what we have are two versions of the main barrels themselves, as well as also some other fittings that are absent on the Dragon tooling. One of which would be the external feed paw mechanism, which you can see right over here. And the other is the safety lock bar that you see presently. In addition to the safety lock bar, we also have the fasteners that are used to pin everything in place, and you actually can secure the unit to the side of the receiver, much along the lines as the real one. On the barrel sections, you'll see that there are two different styles, as we have the two patterns of boosters. As I mentioned in the other video, the 1919 had two patterns of booster, the early and the later pattern, and these units were still in U.S. inventory even post-war, and so when the Navy converted the caliber, they basically just kludged the conversion set onto both patterns, and so both patterns are represented in the set. In the set, you have two of each, two of the early type and two of the later type. Now, as for the detailing, the back end section is identical to the ECA sets that were mentioned previously. So we have the barrel shroud section, we have the internal barrel detailing, all is an integral single printing. It's made again out of the HD material, so we have some very nice detail fidelity. The ventilation holes are the correct scale and are also at the correct number. And then we have the booster sections, and both boosters have their appropriate detailing rendered in, which would include the lock detailing as well as also just the screw detailing itself. On the inside, we also have the barrel tip detailing that is present. It's not going to be visible, but it is there. It's one of those things that's, it's a why not bit of detailing. However, the big difference that separates this set from the other iterations is with the flash suppressor. As you can see, the Navy went ahead and added this very distinctive flash suppressor to the booster section, and this was again done for the caliber conversion. The flash suppressor consists of this cylinder that we have right over here, and it has these three vent holes, or I should say, yeah, these three holes that we have, or not holes is not the right term, slits is the best way to describe it. We have these three slits found on the locations here on the flash suppressor itself, and these features obviously are found on the ECA counterpart. The muzzle sections are at the appropriate thickness, and they also have the appropriate bevel to them, as again, which was seen on a real example that I was doing or using for research. As with the other sets, these are meant to completely replace the entire front end on the Dragon M1919 model sets. Even though these are specifically designed for the Dragon, I'm pretty sure these will be able to work on other 1919s on the market, be it the metal ones from Armor Packs to the 21st Century, and a few other units that are escaping me at the moment. However, I can't really say for certain if that's going to be the case, but for the most part, I shouldn't see why it could be a problem. But as a quick clarification, these are specifically designed for the Dragon and are intended for use of replacing the front end sections on the Dragon component. I also have an update for a component that I announced in a previous video, and that is the metal brass 3D printed US AFV 50 cal travel lock. This was a component that I referenced in an earlier video. However, in that video, I mentioned that the production units that I had on hand had an error with them where they were underscaled. Well, here we now have straight from production the units at the appropriate scale for or I should say the appropriate size for a 1/6 scale model. In comparison, here I have the earlier units that I mentioned before, which are roughly about 1/8, maybe 1/10 scale, just from eyeballing it. And by the way, the few units that I mentioned in that other video are still available in case anyone is interested for the prices that I mentioned before. If anyone is curious, you could hit me up in the comment section below. But regardless, here you can see the actual production units. The component themselves is identical to the other one. It's literally the same CAD file with all of the same features and the same detailings on them, but just bumped up to the appropriate size required for a 1/6 scale model. You can see again all of the weld bead detailing that is present. We have the rabbit ear clamps right there. The units will hinge together with all of the supplied pins, and this is true for not just the main articulation pin, but also the lock mechanism right over there. And yeah, nothing really much to talk about with this. But so, you know, it was a topic that I did wanted to mention. Now that I specifically have these components in hand, these are ready to be packaged up and shipped to the appropriate customers. On the topic of printed metal components, that leads me to the next piece that I have right here, and this is something I've been wanting to do in metal for a little while now. This here is the US AFV tow cable clamp set. This is a set that has been listed on the ECA catalog, not necessarily this exact one, but this component has been on the catalog now since basically I first started ECA. Well, originally that was made out of cast resin with a hand-bent sheet metal top portion, and that was how the component was offered for many years, until about 3 or 4 years ago, where I retired that set and produced those in HD 3D print. Those components are still found on the ECA catalog. However, this is one of those pieces where I always wanted to see if I could make a metal counterpart, and after a little bit of tweaking in the CAD file, you can see the components right here, and this is a production set. This one here is spoken for. However, these are listed on the ECA catalog on the various US AFV tank pages, most notably, of course, the one for the Sherman. With these components here being made out of brass, they are more costly compared to the HD 3D printed counterpart. However, they are much more durable, just with the manufacturing techniques. So if I bring the camera in closer, you'll see that on one set, you will have enough components to assemble 2 US AFV clamps, and 2 is all you would need on an American tank. No more, no less. The clamps themselves have the body, which is right over here. All of the geometry that you see here is lifted from real examples that I had lots of first-hand experience photographing and researching and studying. So you get all of that detailing trickled into the counterparts here. Here you get to see the top portion, which is fully functional. This is meant to hinge open. As you can see, no drilling is required. It's all drilled out through and through. You do have to snip the pieces off of the sprue, of course, but, that's, par for the course. On this side over here, you have the eyelets, which are, again, printed in metal. These will just be pinned into these sections over here. And the pins are also included, as you can see, right here underneath the hump section of the clamp mechanism. In addition to the pin, we also have here the wing nut details. Again, everything is brass, so it's going to be rock solid. And the wing nuts are also drilled out through and through. So everything should be able to be assembled with, at most, maybe some slight hand fitting here and there. Just make sure the holes are, tolerances are open up, just so that the parts get fit on specifically after painted. But regardless, these pieces here are, have been listed to the various catalogs, as I mentioned before, and are an active component now found on the ECA catalog. While we're on a roll talking about new components that are made out of metal, that leads us to the set that we have right here. This is a newly announced and a newly released set on the ECA M26 Pershing catalog. This set here is the brand new M26, M46 family of the rear 50 cal storage rack sets. Now, the components here are similar, and matter of fact, use several other pieces that are found on other sets that are similar to this on the catalog. What makes this set specifically for the M46 and M26 is with this little fret that we have right here. The 2 components that we have here, namely the receiver clamp as well as the barrel clamps, these are standard pieces that are utilized on several other sets that are similar to this found on the ECA catalogs. The difference is that those sets are intended specifically for use on the 75mm Sherman, as opposed to this one here, which are intended for the Pershing. These parts, though, are identical. Same CAD file, same everything. The only difference is that on some of the sets, these are also offered in a HD 3D print counterpart, while for the Pershing sets here, they at the moment are only offered in metal, but I'll probably release a printed resin set in the near future, just as a why not alternative. For the barrel clamp, this is something I believe I referenced in an earlier product announcement video, but it's literally the exact same CAD file. So same geometry, same welds, same everything. As a quick recap, the piece is functional. This piece here can hinge open. The pins are supplied. And here we have the Jeep style of lock mechanism that would lock the unit in place. And you can see all of those features right here on this unit. For the rabbit ear barrel clamps, this here is again made from the same CAD file that makes the HD print resin ones, but these ones here are made out of metal. So you can see what the pieces look like. They have the appropriate geometry for the rabbit ears. We have the main guard, and we also have the rivet detailing found right there on the bottom. Pieces came out pretty good and are much stronger, more durable compared to the older resin print counterparts. This leads us to the bracket mechanism. This is what separates this set compared to the other ones that are offered on the ECA catalog. This one here is for the Pershing, and the Pershings and Patton units are unique because they have the following configuration. So these parts here, you'll notice, are made out of the standard white nylon material. These are very durable and should do the job absolutely perfectly. And you'll see with the way the parts are designed, they have these little squares that are integrally printed on, and they have their center holes drilled out, or printed hollow, I should say. This is the indication points for mounting on the rabbit ears. So there's no guesswork required. You just simply widen the holes out if necessary, and then just glue the new units in place, and you're good to go. On the angles themselves, they have the appropriate geometry where you know they are not squared off. They are rounded on both the exterior and interior portions, as they are on the real one. And you'll see that the one here on the right hand side is longer compared to the one here on the left. And again, this was specifically lifted off of a real M26 Pershing. The only bit of detailing that's absent from this set here are the weld beads, which needs to be sculpted by the builder. But regardless of that, you have everything else here in order to outrig your M26 Pershing. And last but most certainly not least, the final new component that I want to mention in this video is this set that we have here. And this has been a bucket list item that I've been wanting to produce now for about 20 years. And it's also an item that I've had lots and lots of requests for to produce in the past. Only in the past, without 3D printing technology, it would have been almost impossible to produce the part. But here we are. I finally got this one crossed off the list. And what we have here is the Super G badge set. This set here replicates the logo detailing found on casted components from the General Steel Corporation. The General Steel Corporation did a large number of foundry and casting work for a large number of components utilized on U.S. military vehicles from the World War II timeframe all the way up until they eventually went defunct in 1981. And what's unique about their castings is that every component that they casted featured their little badge logo right here embroidered onto the casting itself. With the way the ECA set is designed, you have the badges here rendered in HD 3D print, which means the external finish and quality will be excellent. You can see how clean everything looks, which is exactly what you would want for this type of a component. The set contains a number of parts, and also you get them in a multitude of different sizes. This again ensures that with one set here, you can basically outrig a number of components found on your 1/6 scale model, so that the detailing here can be present on a multitude of different parts. The way the sets are intended to be used is that you remove it off of the sprue over here, you glue it to the side of your turret, your mantlet, or whatever part you deem best, and then you could just glue it onto the side, call it a day. Or if you want, you could either flare it in with a little bit of red putty with that red putty texture technique that I often reference in my videos. Another way that these can be used are with the Plastruct plastic numbers and letters, so that you can have your badge with the ID number and letters integrally casted in to your component, giving again them a high degree of accuracy, detail fidelity, and also authenticity. This set here is spoken for. However, I do have another set in production right now that I'm eagerly awaiting to be utilizing on a upcoming 1/6 scale US tank build, but that's something you are going to have to all wait for. So as you can see, there are a ton of new options out there for anyone who's working on a number of various different 1/6 scale projects. And as time goes on, of course, more new items are going to be developed. A lot of older items are slated to be retired and replaced with newer counterparts. And as time goes on and more new items get this treatment, of course, I will be bringing them to the table for all of you to see and enjoy. And as I mentioned before, all of the components here are listed in the various catalog pages that are found on the ECA catalog, and direct links can be found in the video description listed below. And with that, that wraps up this new product announcement video for the various new EastCoastArmory.com 1/6 scale U.S. military vehicle components. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to this channel, where it's a great way to keep up to date on new posted content, being new product announcement videos like the one that you just watched, or the other larger scale project update videos and smaller scale model showcase videos that frequently get posted to this channel. Another way to keep in loop of new posted content is by liking us on Facebook. There, I have photographs and announcements of all the pieces that you've seen here on the table, as well as the other smaller and larger scale detail parts that have been seen on this channel in the past. Furthermore, don't forget to swing by EastCoastArmory.com for more 1/6 and 1/16 scale builds and detail components. Thanks again. I'll be seeing you all again on the next one. Till then.